Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Raw Radiant Health, and I'm Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me. So it's Friday, we love Friday, and it's actually getting quite cold here in Montreal. I'm like in my scarf and my sweater, whole 9 yards. It's like seasons have literally changed overnight, and I'm keeping warm. So today I decided that I want to talk about being on a raw food diet and being on a budget, because I'm asked a lot of times about giving some tips and tricks on how to eat healthy and how to eat healthy and be able to afford eating healthy, because a lot of times food, produce, fresh produce like fruits and vegetables, greens, nuts, seeds, they can get expensive, and especially when you're eating organic, it can get really expensive. And a lot of times, like as much as like people want to eat healthy, a lot of times it's really hard because they might not be able to afford it, and they're supporting their family and all sorts of things, and they have a lot of expenses. And I mean, it's terrible to see that a lot of times junk food is so much cheaper than health food. And I mean, how messed up is that? It sucks, but that's the reality. And therefore we got to find ways around it, and we got to figure out how to get healthy food and still be able to afford it, because I don't want anyone feeling stressed out about yet one more thing, right? So I'm going to give you some tips. The main tip that I have is, if you can, get your stuff organic. If you cannot, that's all right. It's not the best, but it's all right. And the main foods that you want to definitely get organic would be food that is exposed, like potentially exposed to chemicals, like your greens or berries or anything that you can't peel the skin off of. You want to get that organic, because what you have to picture is how the stuff is being grown, right? It's all being, if it's grown conventionally, it's being exposed to, I mean, these crazy sprays of chemicals and stuff. Like the people that spray it, they're wearing like full on, almost like space suits. Like they're covered, because this is really like all the chemicals and pesticides and herbicides. They're very, 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 very poisonous. And like I used to live in Australia, and I worked on a vineyard. And I mean, the days that they were spraying the vineyard, like, you know, we'd have to go and work on the other side. I mean, and you had to see, the owner of the vineyard looked like he was like coming out of like a space, like sci-fi movie. I mean, the full on like gear, okay? Because that stuff is bad. And so you don't want to eat food that the skin or the actual food is being exposed to it. So things like apples and cucumbers and pears and all that, you just want to make sure you take off the skin, okay, if you're eating it where it's been sprayed, or that you can wash it really, really well. But like for me, my priority is I always buy my greens, always organic, always, no exception. I will not go near greens that are not organic, okay, so that's my priority. Then the rest of it, like melons and stuff, well, I'm taking the flesh out of it, that it's not as a big a deal. Like they say bananas as well too, like anything that's got a big skin around it, it's less likely to be that harmful for you. But if you can get it all organic, all the better for you. Now, another thing you can do is get things in a larger quantity. So make friends with the guy that owns, or the woman that owns the local fruit store. Go to smaller places where it's more of a family-run business or an individual-run business, where if you go and speak to the owner and say, listen, like, I'm interested in buying, like, you know, a crate of lettuce or a box of apples, things like that, they'll give you a good price on it. But you have to look around. But you'll have that more of an opportunity to do that if you go to a smaller, privately owned small business, rather than going to like a big grocery store. The grocery stores are not really interested in that. Like but the smaller business, yes, you know, and especially if you're going to continue to go there, then they'd be all for it. I mean, that helps them out as well, because then they can get rid of larger quantities at a time. Another suggestion as well would be to go and buy produce that is discounted, like bananas, for example. Like most fruit, you're better off buying the fruit that's discounted, that's fully ripe, right? Like bananas. You know, when they're turning brown, a lot of stores will sell them for nothing. They want to get rid of them because no one buys them. Everyone buys green bananas for some reason, which makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever, because you don't want to eat a green banana, and it takes forever to ripen. So buy the bananas that are brown. Get those, and then you can, any kind of fruit, like the mangoes too, that are all overly ripe and they've got the brown spots on them, and the persimmons that are about to burst open, and get all your fruit, get that at the discounted where it's so ripe, it's verging on going bad, but it's not bad yet. But that's when it's actually really good for your body. That's when you're able to process it. I mean, when you're eating fruit that's not ripe, it's very acidic. So the more riper it is, the easier it is to digest and to assimilate it. So when you go and buy the fruit that's super ripe, then you can just either throw it into your smoothie immediately or in the next few days, put it in the refrigerator, or what you can do is buy a larger quantity and you can freeze it. My main, you know, I know a lot of people are like, don't freeze your food, it's, you know, going to take away nutrition. Well, if you know that you're going to actually eat it within a few days or like a few weeks, then fine. As long as it's not sitting in the freezer for months on end, you want to stay away from it. But a lot of times I'll go to like a farmer's market and I'll get like a big quantity of really ripe produce, and like really ripe pears or persimmons or things like that. And I know I won't be able to eat them within the next few days, that I will put them in the freezer, and I know I'm going to eat them within like a week or two. And that's fine, no big deal. And at least, you know, same thing with berries at this time of year, like got the blueberries and all that. Buy a large quantity of it, put it in the freezer, and throw it in your smoothies and stuff. And the main thing is, anything that you're buying that's like discounted and it's mushy and it still tastes alright, so just bring it home and make a huge smoothie out of it, or a savory soup out of the vegetables that might be a bit bruised, like tomatoes, things like that. So you can always buy discounted produce, which can help. And then another suggestion, which I mean is the healthiest thing you can ever eat, are sprouts. We all know that, like, super cheap. You grow them in bowls, you don't need any equipment for it. Stuff is so cheap, and it's the most nutritious and freshest thing you can possibly eat. And other things too, like get into making sauerkrauts, things like that. Super cheap. Cabbage is super cheap. This is easy stuff you can make large quantities and keep in your refrigerator, and that can keep you going as well too. The main thing is that fresh vegetables and fresh fruit, they're good for you. And when it comes down to it, if you can look around and find places where they sell you at a good value, then all for it. You know, like the nuts, the seeds, those things get expensive, and you don't need them as much as you need the fresh greens and the vegetables and the fruit. So really put your money into eating the fresh produce and sprouts, things like that, and then get like a little bit of seeds here and there where you might be spending more money. Especially nuts, you don't have to eat so much nuts, and that's where the money goes. So those are a bit of tips. Hope you enjoy it, hope you use it, and just get big quantities and just get to know your local fruit and vegetable salesperson, because they can become your best friend. Oh, and don't forget to sign up for the Juice Feast. It's next week, by the way. It is next week. So get onto it now, because I'm actually preparing everyone starting Monday. Even though we start the Juice Feast on Thursday, October 1st, I am sending out information starting Monday. So better to sign up sooner than later. But you can sign up towards the end, but try and do it now, okay? So have a fabulous weekend. Bye!